The authors reviewed 2,000 published experiments designed to test the relationship between religion and various medical conditions, such as heart disease, cancer, and depression. The overall results were that religious people tend to live longer and have physically healthier lives. Young people have significantly lower levels of drug and alcohol abuse, criminal delinquency, and attempted suicide. Example number 3. The Gallup survey on religion in America concluded that people who agree that God is very important to them in their lives are twice as likely to be happy than people who said that God is not important to them. And the National Opinion Research Center reported exactly the same conclusions. Example number 4. In 2000, political scientist and Professor Robert Putnam surveyed 200 volunteer organizations, and it showed that there was a positive correlation between religiosity and membership of philanthropic organizations. The Index of Global Philanthropy in 2007, it states, religious people are more charitable than non-religious people, not only in giving to their own congregations, but also regardless of income, region, social class, and other demographic variables. Significantly more charitable in the secular donations and informal giving. So the first argument is very simple. Many humanists or people of non-religious persuasion argue you can be good without God. That's actually true. However, from sociological objective evidence, which transcends our personal subjective experience, it shows there's a positive correlation of someone adopting a religious worldview and having high levels of philanthropy, altruism, happiness, mental health, etc. So Islam being a religion also indicates to us that it's also timeless, because in the 21st century it provides these type of positive results. My second argument, which is a bit of a philosophical argument, but I've put this in here so you could understand the Islamic worldview. It allows you to basically intrude in the internal dynamics of the Muslim mind. And this is very important. If we want to get to know one another, we need to be able to insert ourselves in the Islamic Muslim dynamic. And I think this second argument is quite apt in delivering that kind of perspective. Now, Islam is a timeless religion because it transcends the problem of our relativist discourse, the skeptical discourse, the postmodern discourse in the 21st century. There is no truth. All rivers lead to the same sewer. Yeah? That's what we say, don't we? It's your perspective. There is no absolute. There is no truth. I mean, even from a philosophical perspective, the idea of skepticism came from the Greek philosopher Sextus Empiricus. Well, actually, he was one of the propagators, the one who started to write about these things. From a crude perspective, this perspective is self-defeating. Because to utter there is no truth is self-defeating, because you're uttering a truth to say there is no truth. So the point I'm trying to make is, from an Islamic perspective, it actually transcends this type of relativist skeptical discourse. And I've called this the logic of submission. Now in Islam, we believe that we must submit ourselves cognitively, not blindly, to a transcendental creator. We must submit ourselves to the sole cause of the universe, and as a result, we would attain a form of internal tranquility and peace. Now, let me summarize the Islamic worldview in the following way. 1. God is all-knowing and all-wise. 2. Human beings are not. 3. Therefore, it is rational and beneficial to follow what God has said. It's as simple as that. You transcend other types of philosophy, skepticism, and relativistic discourse. Now, there's a presupposition here. The presupposition is that actually God does exist. And also the other presupposition is that he actually has said something. He has delivered a type of expression or discourse to mankind. But if we can't actually show greater reasons to believe that God does exist, and that the Quran, which is the book of the Muslims, is actually true, then this logical summary, this Islamic worldview is actually correct. Which, to summarize again, 1, God is all-knowing, all-wise. 2, human beings are not. 3, therefore we should follow what he has said. However, this assumes that miracles are logically coherent. Now, in the medieval discourse, when we had the approaching Enlightenment era, we had issues with regards to religion. In Europe, we had the Catholic Church, which used the coercive arm of the state to prevent any type of progressive discourse about intellectual activity, freedom of speech, and other types of progressive ideas. They wanted to prevent them. They wanted to push them down. Anything incongruent with the Catholic tradition, the Catholic Church at the time used the coercive arm of the state to prevent all of these things from occurring in the public square. And as a result, one of the main discussions was about miracles. Can miracles actually exist? Because they wanted to basically undermine the main premise of Christian theology. Because they said Christianity is creating a bit of a mess in Europe. You know, we had the 80-year wars, the 30-year wars, we had the massacre on St. Bartholomew's Day, and it created the apt environment for the likes of Locke and Hugo Grotius and Pufendorf and others to create an individualist doctrine on rights, which basically means, in essence, to disassociate the human being away from society or the God's perception of what a society should be. So he has rights regardless of God. You see? Now, they wanted to discuss about miracles. That was one of the attacks, intellectual attacks on the Christian tradition. For example, David Hume, he described miracles as violations of natural law. But I believe if we contrast this to Islamic philosophy, we would actually agree with most of the philosophical discourse in the medieval period, because we agree that miracles are not a violation of natural law. Because what is natural law? Natural law are just perceptions of patterns that we perceive in the universe. If something breaks that pattern, does it mean it's a miracle? Of course not, because it's just a pattern. Maybe it was part of the pattern. Maybe we didn't wait long enough. Maybe we weren't attentive. So it's an incoherent description of what actually a miracle is. And this is something that the philosopher Belinsky also argues. Now, to recover the concept of a miracle, we basically have to change definitions. And I think one of the greatest ways of doing that is saying that a miracle is an act of impossibility. It's an act of impossibility. Or in the words of the philosopher Lane Craig, he says a miracle is an event which lies outside the productive capacity of nature. Now, how does this fit with my argument? Why am I talking about miracles? Now, the reason it fits is because if I could show that there's greater reasons to believe that the Quran is a miracle, then it supports my logical summary of the Islamic worldview that transcends our relativist skeptical discourse. Now, that's why I talked about the coherence of miracles. Now, how does this fit with the Quran? Well, I believe the Quran is a miracle. For example, the Quran is a very interesting book because what it does, it seeks to impose itself on everybody. Yay! In a nice way, I believe. In a nice way. And what do I mean by a nice way? Because it's intrusive. It wants to intrude in the inner dispositions of man. It goes inside the man with regards to his mind and his inner dispositions. Now, I studied psychology in London, and how does a shrink do this? Well, he asks you questions. How are you, sir? You enjoying this lecture so far? You better, man. I know Kung Fu. So the point is, you ask questions, and the Quran does this in a profound way. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, which in the English translation means, do they not reflect within themselves? The physiological dynamic, the awareness, the fact that we have consciousness, reflect upon this, yeah? So it engages with man's mind. For example, the Quran also says, وَكَذَلِكَ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And thus, we explain our evidences, our signs in detail for those who reflect. For those who reflect. يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. What does that mean? That doesn't mean you're reflecting like a desert romantic. You're going to play with the sand and look at the stars and maybe have a pint of beer or milk for the Muslim. Yeah? That, you know, what it actually means in the classical Arabic is the thing that you're reflecting upon, you must inquire about the implications of what you're reflecting upon. What does it really mean? Don't have a superficial discourse. Look at certain realities. There are implications to your reflection, to your meditation, to your pondering about certain things. So this is the nature of the Quran. And what I believe, which is quite interesting with the Quranic discourse, is that it goes further than this. It actually challenges mankind. Philosophically, it says in the Arabic language, and I will translate, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِمَّا نَزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ